Hello, we're here today at the J.P. Morgan Healthcare Conference in San Francisco, and I have the pleasure of having in the studio with me Roz Brandon from Immunexpress. So Roz, great to see you here at the conference.
Thank you, Dave. It's a pleasure to be here.
So Roz, your organization Immunexpress is dealing with sepsis, and you've come up with a novel and very unique technology on how sepsis is diagnosed. Can you tell our viewers a little bit about that?
I'd love to, Dave, because we are quite unique. Traditionally, how sepsis has been diagnosed is trying to find the bug, trying to find the infection. And that is quite problematic. It's very slow and it's very unreliable. And so because the process in the body that kills a patient from sepsis, and it can kill a patient very quickly, is related to the immune system. And so we said, why don't we measure the septic immune response rather than trying to find a needle in the haystack, which is the bug. Now, of course, you have to try to find the bug so you can treat it with the right antibiotic, but that still takes some time. So what we're doing is we're measuring 4 genes. The expression of those genes goes up and down in a particular ratio, depending upon whether the patient has sepsis or not. And so what we can do is we can give an answer in about 60 to 90 minutes rather than days, and rather than having all of these results where they simply can't find the pathogen. So what do they then do? What does the doctor then do to treat it? So there are many people out there, many patients, and if they're lucky to have survived, but they will have relatives who've died of sepsis, and they'll have relatives who've survived from sepsis. It is a major problem and not necessarily well-known problem in the public.
So when time is of the essence in diagnosing sepsis, obviously it is, how is the test administered? Is it, obviously it's in the clinical setting?
It is in the clinical setting. So what we are doing at the moment is putting it onto what's called a point of care platform. And that means that it can sit by the patient, it can sit in ICU, it can sit in emergency, it can sit in the labs that are close by the critical care within the hospital. So it's simply a blood sample, and the blood goes into a cartridge. The cartridge is inserted into an instrument, and then the instrument, you dial up on the menu that you want this particular test, and then it will come up with a report that's actionable clinical information for the physician.
Now, Roz, is this technology available today?
It is not, but it will be available later this year. So we are very excited about getting it out there because it's going to save a lot of lives and it's going to save a lot of costs with better clinical outcomes for patients. And I think we're going to be able to reduce the number of missed cases. There are quite a lot of missed cases of sepsis, and we're going to be able to diagnose it earlier.
Now, when sepsis, where does it present itself in the typical patient? Is it isolated to a certain part of the body?
No. What it is it's a systemic inflammatory response, and it's triggered by the infection. So what is important to understand about sepsis is that the inflammation, the immune response becomes systemic, meaning it takes the whole body. It involves the whole body. And so that can very often be as a result of an infection, as a wound, pneumonia, could be a urinary infection. But if that immune response becomes systemic, then that's what causes sepsis, and then you start to get, the patient starts to get organ failure, and once the patient has organ failure, then they're quite difficult to treat.
Now, how many patients will be diagnosed with sepsis in a given year?
There are, the incidence of sepsis is around about 1 million per year, and it's very much more than some of the cancers put together. It just doesn't have the profile of cancers. It also has a mortality rate of about 20 to 60%, depending upon where the patient is.
20 to 60%.
Yeah.
So now this technology is coming to market later this year in the US?
Yes.
And so obviously you're in trials and you're working with the FDA. A condition this big, it seems to me that the FDA would be certainly fast-tracking this technology, getting it to market. We're going to save patients' lives. It's going to promote better clinical outcomes. Are you getting good feedback from your trials and from what you're hearing from the FDA?
We are. We've been working closely with the FDA for the last 3 years. They've been very supportive. They've helped us in designing the right trials. They've helped us in the clinical reporting format. They are very excited about this technology. They're supportive, and they see that this is the way that sepsis is going to be diagnosed in the future. Of course, it needs to be taken in conjunction with pathogen information, but as a first step when a doctor, physician suspects that a patient may have sepsis, then this will be one of the first steps that they will take.
Yeah. Well, Roz, great seeing you. I admire greatly the work that you're doing for patients and caregivers. And so I'm very, very excited to see this product come to market, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you so much, Dave, and congratulations on your organisation and how many patients you're helping out there in the global community.
Thank you.